Manila gleamed under the scorching afternoon sun, its busy streets pulsing with the typical energy of an Asian metropolis. Among the modern skyscrapers of Makati's financial district, a man of short stature walked with calm steps, his simple clothes contrasting with the elegant suits of executives hurrying past. His tired eyes carried the weight of a long journey, and his humble appearance suggested someone who had known poverty up close. The Perla del Oriente restaurant stood out on the main avenue, its mirrored glass facade reflecting the status of one of the city's most exclusive establishments. Manny Pacquiao stopped before the entrance, observing the movement through the revolving doors. He had chosen that place specifically, not for the fine cuisine or luxurious ambience, but because he needed to meet someone important to discuss a charity project for underprivileged children in Mindanao. Wearing a faded polo shirt and worn jeans, he entered the restaurant with the same quiet confidence that had accompanied him since the difficult times in General Santos City. The cold air conditioning contrasted with the suffocating heat of the street, and the aroma of refined Filipino spices hung in the air. Waiters in impeccable uniforms circulated among tables occupied by businessmen and socialites, all immersed in conversations about business and politics. The restaurant manager, Roberto Santos, a tall, thin man of approximately 40 years, observed the new customer's entrance from his post near the reception desk. His eyes critically scanned the visitor's simple clothes, frowning in disapproval. Years of experience serving wealthy clients had shaped his perception of who did or didn't deserve to be in that exclusive environment. He adjusted his silk tie and walked toward the modestly dressed man with determined steps. Manny remained standing near the entrance, his eyes scanning the dining room for an available table. Despite his worldwide fame and considerable fortune, he had deliberately chosen to dress simply that day, a constant reminder of his humble roots and the purpose that brought him there. The meeting he awaited could mean education and food for thousands of Filipino children, and that was his only concern at that moment. Roberto Santos approached with his chin raised and a forced smile on his lips, his eyes having already made their judgment before even addressing the customer. The rigid posture and condescending tone he adopted revealed years of practice in dealing with people he considered unsuitable for Perla del Oriente's refined environment. He stopped at a calculated distance, sufficient to keep his hierarchical superiority evident. The manager examined the visitor's worn clothes once more, noting the simple shoes and absence of expensive accessories that usually adorned his regular customers. In his mind, he had already categorized the man before him as someone who had probably gotten lost or entered the wrong place. With a subtle gesture, he beckoned to two security guards who remained discreetly near the entrance, preparing for a possible need for escort. Manny noticed the manager's approach and offered a genuine smile, the same one that had won millions of fans around the world. His calloused hands, which had knocked out several world champions, remained relaxed at his sides. He understood the misunderstanding his appearance caused, but didn't care. He had learned long ago that true strength came from humility. Roberto began speaking with an artificially polite voice, suggesting that perhaps the visitor was looking for another establishment, mentioning some more modest restaurants nearby. His gestures were subtly dismissive, pointing toward the exit while maintaining his professional smile. Other employees watched the scene from a distance, some recognizing the familiar dynamic of an unwanted customer being gently invited to leave. The boxer maintained his composure, calmly explaining that he had an important appointment at the restaurant and would like a table. His voice carried the same serenity he demonstrated in the rings, even when facing the most aggressive opponents. Roberto, however, became more insistent, his tone gradually changing from false courtesy to poorly disguised impatience, stating that all tables were reserved and it would be impossible to accommodate someone without a prior reservation. The tension in the restaurant's lobby increased subtly, like the atmosphere before a tropical storm. Roberto Santos crossed his arms over his chest, his body language creating an invisible barrier between him and the persistent customer. Other employees began paying more attention to the situation, some whispering among themselves about the man in simple clothes who refused to leave. The manager felt his authority being challenged, and this deeply irritated him. Manny took a deep breath, remembering the years when he sold water and bread on the streets of General Santos City to help his family. This humiliation wasn't new to him, but now he had the resources and influence to make a difference in the lives of other children going through the same difficulties. With patience, he explained that his appointment was with Mr. Fernando Ramirez, one of the Philippines' leading philanthropists, to discuss building an educational center in Mindanao. The name Fernando Ramirez made Roberto hesitate for a moment, but his pride spoke louder. He assumed the man before him was lying or confusing the information, as he personally knew Mr. Ramirez and couldn't imagine he would schedule a meeting with someone of such modest appearance. With a harsher tone, he insisted there was no reservation under that name and that the visitor should leave immediately. The situation began attracting more attention. Some nearby customers interrupted their conversations to observe the unfolding confrontation. An elderly lady at a nearby table frowned, something familiar about the humble man's face awakening her memory. A young executive discreetly picked up his phone, sensing that something unusual was happening. The restaurant's luxurious environment contrasted with the growing tension hanging in the air. Manny remained calm. His experience in thousands of boxing rounds had taught him that true victory came from mental discipline. He politely suggested that the manager check the reservation system again or consult Mr. Ramirez himself. Roberto, however, interpreted the insistence as disrespect to his authority. With a more emphatic wave, he called the security guards to escort the intruder out of the establishment. The two security guards approached with firm steps, but something about the posture of the man they were supposed to escort made them hesitate. There was a serene confidence in his eyes, a disturbing familiarity in his features that was beginning to spark recognition. One of the guards, Miguel, a former amateur boxer, felt his heart race as he studied the supposed intruder's face more carefully. His eyes widened in shock when the realization finally hit him. At that exact moment, a commotion arose at the restaurant's main entrance. Fernando Ramirez, a distinguished gentleman with gray hair wearing an impeccable suit, hurried into the establishment. His eyes swept the lobby until they found the familiar figure he was looking for. With a warm smile, he exclaimed a name that made the entire restaurant freeze. Manny Pacquiao's name echoed through the dining room like thunder, followed by a deafening silence. Roberto Santos felt the blood drain from his face as he watched the respected philanthropist warmly embrace the man he had tried to expel. Mr. Ramirez apologized for being late, explaining aloud that traffic had complicated his arrival for the important meeting about the educational project. He mentioned what an honor it was to receive the world champion, the pride of the Philippines, at his favorite restaurant. Each word was like a direct blow to the manager's stomach. Recognition spread through the restaurant like a wave. Cell phones began appearing everywhere. Customers rose from their tables to get a better view. Excited murmurs filled the air. The elderly lady who had noticed something familiar smiled knowingly, while the young executive was already recording the scene. Employees ran to whisper to each other, and the name Pacquiao was repeated in tones of admiration and surprise throughout the dining room. Miguel, the security guard, took a step back in respect, his hands trembling slightly. He had watched all of Pacquiao's fights, had posters of him in his small apartment, and now was inches away from his idol. Roberto remained paralyzed, his mind struggling to process the magnitude of his mistake. The man he had judged unworthy of his establishment was not just an international celebrity, but a national hero, a symbol of hope for millions of Filipinos. Roberto Santos's face underwent a dramatic transformation, from the red of shame to the pale white of fear. His hands began to tremble as he watched Fernando Ramirez guide Manny Pacquiao toward the best table in the restaurant, the one with a panoramic view of Manila Bay. The manager felt the weight of disapproving looks from his employees and customers, each of them witnesses to his terrible error in judgment. With faltering steps, Roberto followed the boxer and philanthropist's path, his mind racing to find the right words for an apology. His career, built over 15 years in the hospitality sector, seemed to crumble before his eyes. He knew the story would spread quickly through social media, staining not only his reputation but also that of the prestigious restaurant he managed. Manny noticed the manager's approach and, despite the treatment he had received, maintained his serene expression. Years of discipline in the ring and his deep faith had taught him about forgiveness and compassion. He observed the man who moments before had humiliated him, recognizing in the pale face and remorseful eyes the weight of guilt and remorse. It was a moment the champion had experienced many times, the opportunity to show grace in the face of adversity. Roberto stopped beside the table, his legs feeling like jelly. With a trembling voice, he began stammering apologies, his words tumbling over each other in his rush to express his deep regret. Tears began forming in his eyes as he explained that he hadn't recognized the champion, that he had judged by appearances, that he had made the biggest mistake of his professional life. His arrogance had transformed into desperate pleading. The entire restaurant watched the scene in respectful silence. Employees who had previously followed the manager's orders without question now witnessed his complete humiliation. Some filmed discreetly, others simply watched with a mixture of surprise and lesson learned. Mr. Ramirez remained silent, allowing the moment to unfold naturally, aware that he was witnessing something much deeper than a simple misunderstanding. Manny Pacquiao slowly rose from his chair, his movements carrying the same grace he demonstrated in the ring. He extended his hand to Roberto, who looked at it surprised, as if he didn't believe he deserved such a gesture of reconciliation. The boxer then gently placed his hand on the manager's shoulder, a paternal touch that carried years of wisdom acquired through his own experiences with poverty and prejudice. With a calm and compassionate voice, Manny shared his own story, how he had slept in cardboard boxes on the streets, how he had gone hungry so his siblings could eat, how he had been rejected and humiliated countless times before becoming champion. He explained that he had chosen to dress simply that day as a constant reminder of his origins and to never forget those who still struggle daily for survival. Roberto listened to every word as if they were drops of water in the desert of his conscience. Tears now flowed freely down his face as he understood the depth of his failure. It wasn't just about not recognizing a celebrity. It was about his tendency to judge people's worth by their external appearance, a practice he had unconsciously cultivated over the years in his desire to maintain the establishment's standards. The world champion then did something that surprised everyone. He invited Roberto to sit at the table with him and Mr. Ramirez. He explained that the educational project they were discussing would need committed people, and that perhaps this experience could transform the manager into someone capable of seeing beyond appearances. The proposal was simple. Roberto could help organize charity events at the restaurant to raise funds for underprivileged children. The restaurant exploded in spontaneous applause. Customers and employees witnessed not just an act of forgiveness, but a profound lesson about humanity and second chances. Miguel, the security guard, wiped away a discreet tear, while other employees smiled with renewed admiration for their national hero. The moment transcended the initial incident, becoming a powerful demonstration of how true greatness manifests through humility and compassion. In the following weeks, Roberto Santos became a different person. The incident at the restaurant had deeply shaken his values and perspectives, forcing him to confront prejudices he didn't even know he carried. He implemented new training for his team, emphasizing that every customer should be treated with equal respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance or apparent social status. Perla del Oriente began hosting monthly fundraising events for the Mindanao Educational Project. Roberto personally supervised every detail, working tirelessly to ensure the success of the initiatives. He discovered a genuine passion for helping others, something that had remained dormant under layers of professional pretension. His family noticed the change. He was more present, more humble, more connected to his own humble roots. Manny Pacquiao regularly attended the events, always arriving quietly and without fanfare. He and Roberto developed an unlikely but genuine friendship, based on mutual respect and shared commitment to making a difference. The boxer shared stories of his difficult childhood, while Roberto learned about resilience, faith, and the true meaning of success. Each meeting deepened the manager's transformation. The restaurant experienced unexpected growth in its clientele. The story of the encounter had spread, but not as a scandal, rather as an inspiring testimony of forgiveness and change. People from all social classes began frequenting the establishment, attracted not just by the excellent food, but by the welcoming atmosphere Roberto had cultivated. Perla del Oriente became a symbol of inclusion and respect in Manila. Fernando Ramirez watched the entire transformation with satisfaction. The educational project had gained an unexpected and valuable ally. Roberto not only organized events, but also used his network of contacts in the business world to attract more donors. His personal story of transformation became a powerful testimony during project presentations, inspiring others to question their own prejudices and contribute to the cause. A year later, Roberto was on a plane bound for General Santos City, accompanying Manny Pacquiao and a delegation of businessmen and philanthropists. They were going to inaugurate the first educational center of the project, built with funds raised through events at Perla del Oriente and other initiatives. The manager looked out the window, reflecting on how his life had changed since that fateful day at the restaurant. The inauguration was an emotional event. Hundreds of children, many barefoot and wearing simple clothes, filled the new center with hopeful smiles. Roberto felt a lump in his throat seeing them. They were reflections of Manny himself in his childhood, and also living reminders of the type of person he had almost prevented from entering his restaurant. Each child's face reinforced the lesson learned about the danger of superficial judgments. During the ceremony, Manny made sure to introduce Roberto as one of the project's main supporters. The once arrogant manager now took the stage with genuine humility, sharing his transformation story with the audience. He spoke about how a moment of prejudiced blindness had become the catalyst for the most significant change in his life, and how grateful he was for the second chance he had received. The children listened attentively as Roberto explained that the center was not just a place to learn math and science, but also to learn about respect, dignity, and the intrinsic value of every human being. His words were punctuated by enthusiastic applause, especially when he announced that Perla del Oriente had committed to providing nutritious meals for the students throughout the school year. At the end of the day, as the sun set over Mindanao, Roberto and Manny were sitting on the steps of the new center, watching the children play in the courtyard. The boxer placed his hand on his unlikely friend's shoulder, thanking him for his dedication to the cause. Roberto replied that it was he who should be grateful, for having learned that true wealth lies not in the clothes we wear or the titles we display, but in the ability to see and value the humanity in every person we meet. The educational project had become reality, but the true victory was in the transformation of hearts and minds, beginning with a simple act of forgiveness in a luxurious Manila restaurant. If you like this kind of story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next videos.